So you got yourself a listing. Congratulations, but what are you going to do to take that listing and turn it into multiple new listings? Hey, what's happening? I'm J.C Agajanian, broker associate with the Whissel Realty Group, bringing you the recap of the Monday morning mastermind like I do every week. Today we've got three great topics we are running through. One of them is how best to send listings to clients. There's actually a lot of options out there, so we're going to talk through them all. The next one we're going to talk about is leveraging your new listing to get more listings in the future. And finally, we're going to talk about helping someone who either doesn't have much of a social presence of their own or is just a brand new agent in general, jumpstart their social media presence. So let's jump straight into it. What tools are you using, and what is the best way to send properties to your clients? We're fast forwarding past the lead generation, the nurture, the phone conversion, the appointment. You've got yourself a buyer. Now, what is the best practices to help get those properties into your buyer's inbox? Well, a lot of people say, well, just set them up for search in the MLS. Away you go. Let them know when there's something you're interested in, and we'll go see it. I mean, that'll work, but there's better ways to do it. And so we discussed today something that most people in the real estate business have, which is their own personally branded IDX site, right? And the topic of conversation was predominantly surrounding utilizing that website as opposed to the MLS to send your clients properties. The idea is that you want to really just make your site the box in which they live when they're looking at properties. You want them to be constantly seeing your branding, your information, but the other benefit to having them use your site only as opposed to the one provided by the local MLS is that you're going to get back-end data analytics. You're going to be notified when they're checking out properties. You're going to know which exact property they're looking at. You're going to know how frequently that's happening. And so there's just a lot of information and a lot of benefit to using your own personalized site as opposed to the local MLS site. Now, we're not going to exclude that altogether. We're still going to take advantage of the local MLS. What we're going to do is we're going to use that, set up a filtered search, specifically using the buyer's criteria that you're talking about, but instead of automatically firing those properties off at them, you're going to set it up and send it to yourself. It seems kind of weird, I know, but there's a reason behind it. When you have properties for your clients coming to yourself, you're going to be aware of what they're looking at. And the cool thing is you can be more proactive about making calls to keep the momentum moving in their search process. So let's say you have a property come in on the MLS search to you, and you know that it may not be a perfect fit. On paper, it looks like it'd be good, but actually it has 2 stories when the buyer wants one, and maybe it's got a pool and they don't want a pool. Well, you can call them up and be like, hey, I saw this property. On paper, it looks like perfect match, square footage, location, blah, 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 condition. But here's the thing, that thing's got 2 stories. I don't know if you could tell from the photos. It's a 2-story home. It also has a pool. So you're going to see it pop up in your search. Don't worry about it. We've already excluded it, but we're going to keep looking for the right one for you. Or it could be the opposite, right? It could be the perfect property and you want to call them right away. Or let's say the worst case scenario is that they catch a property before you do, because the advice here is not to allow yourself to just be distracted with random property notifications for your various buyers all day long. Just like everything we do, we're going to time block this. So we're going to set a time, ideally midday when you're not in the middle of urgent morning issues or maybe out in the field showing properties or meeting with clients. And you're going to want to just time block it so that all the notifications for the various buyers that you're working with come in one at a time and you can review them and move forward. So if somebody sees something before you like it, be like, oh, you know what? I saw that. I was going to actually give you a call about that later on. Let's talk more about it. Or maybe you see something you haven't gotten in touch with your client yet, but you think it could be a good fit. Well, go ahead and make that phone call to the agent, ask a few more qualifying questions, maybe get status on the property. And then when you talk to them, not only are you pointing out a good option for them, but you've also gotten on the phone. So now you're able to bring them more information than is already in the MLS. So this is extra work, I understand, right? And one of the top agents spoke up today and said, listen, our business is hard, right? But what's harder? Doing this extra work that we're talking about, or finding out that your prospect or your client has bought or sold with someone else? That's an easy answer, right? So yeah, like I said, time block what you're doing, keep an eye on the properties, use branded sites for your clients, use the MLS to have incoming properties for yourself, and then just be proactive. Get on it, show your clients that you are thinking about them all the time, that you have their best interest in mind, that you're watching properties, not to mention the other activities you're doing to try and see if you can't find something off market for them. So that is what the conclusion we came to as far as best practices surrounding sending out properties to your clients. Now, let's move on to leveraging your new listing to get more listings in the neighborhood. This is a huge topic, and it's something that I've been trained on probably, as soon as I came to the Whissel Group. This is a huge deal because we need to not just be excited about the listing that we've got and the pending paycheck that may be coming in and doing the things that need to be done to get this listing sold. We have to do all those things, but we need to be thinking one step beyond, and that's where is your next listing coming from. So obviously, with all your marketing efforts that you're doing for this property, of course, you're focusing on getting the word out and making the new listing that you've got publicly aware, doing your job. But you're also thinking about lead generation. You're not just thinking about marketing the property, and you have to be thinking that way at all times. So one way to do that is to put it up as coming soon. Even if you are ready to rock, you've got the beautiful photos, you're good to go, see if you can buy at least a couple days, if not a week, to take advantage of the coming soon status. So what are you going to do with this? Why do you want it as coming soon? Well, the idea is to run a marketing campaign. This is going to, of course, stir up interest in the listing that we're talking about. But to the goal that we're talking about today, getting new listings out of it, it's also going to help you generate new leads. So the idea is to create an ad around the coming soon status. So you've got a coming soon, we're talking about social media, maybe pay-per-click. You've got a coming soon, you've got the beautiful photos, the highlights of the property shown in the photos, but for additional photos, for video, for exact pricing, bed, bath count, square footage, all the stuff that everybody really wants to know and frankly expects to see in some sort of description or marketing flyer, we are going to leave that off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push them into a funnel, and we're just going to be looking for emails. So, we have a landing page and they're going to be able to get all the information they need. All you need to do is just give me that email, and then boom, immediately it pops up and they're going to get what they want. So it's not anything negative as far as the relationship between you and your seller. You're not taking advantage of this listing. These activities truly do serve two purposes, right? So you are helping yourself add leads to your pipeline, but you are also stirring up interest for this particular property. And as we all know, even if it's on the market with a huge open house and lots of people coming through, it's going to be disqualified from the majority of people for one reason or another. So don't think that you're doing anything shady or weird by taking advantage of this. What you're really doing is multiplying your efforts to serve more than one purpose. So you got a clear conscience on that one, right? So what else can we do to take a listing and get more business out of it? Well, the old tried and true are always there, and they're called that way for a reason. So what we can do is start with just listed calls. You've got access to pull in data, phone numbers, people's contact information, and you just start circle dialing, right? You can always reverse it as well and tell a story about how you've got a buyer who's looking in this area and would love to find a property like this. Now, do it for real though. Don't be using the fictitious buyer. I mean, this is something that a lot of people do, but if you actually begin to get in conversation with potential sellers and they're like, wow, they respond to your voicemail drop or the voicemail that you leave, We're a big fan of Sly Broadcast, and that's a tool that you can record a voicemail and drop it to hundreds of phone numbers at a time. If someone responds to that and you're actually in conversation with them and they ask you a few questions about this buyer, it's got to be real. I mean, it's going to be a bad conversation if you're making things up. So don't do that if it's phony, or maybe talk to your coworkers and see if one of them has a buyer that fits this need, and make sure that it's clear, and then you can just be honest with them. If you actually get a live one on the line, just be like, actually, it's not my buyer, it's my coworker down the hall. He's got this person that's looking for this specific property. I figured that, I could not only market our listing now, but also see if I could help him out. Is that something you see? Seems like you might be interested in maybe selling in the near future, and take the conversation from there, right? Like I said, Sly Broadcast is a great tool for things like this. Don't forget the grunt work. So we always talk about people having one of two things. Either you got sweat equity, meaning you don't have a big bankroll to throw into marketing, but you have a decent amount of time and energy to go do things. Or check equity, meaning your time is pretty sucked up and you're really busy all the time, but you actually have a little bit of a budget so that you can spend on doing things. In one way or the other, it'll fit everyone. Somebody falls into that category. So you can get the job done. And one of the ways we do it with sweat equity is to hit the streets, door knock. What we're going to do for a new listing is, if you do this, you are guaranteed to get business, because nobody is door knocking 4 times around one listing. So first you could door knock it, just signed the listing, hasn't even done anything yet. We just secured the contract. We're going to be bringing this property to market soon. We'd love to know if you or any of your neighbors would like to buy this property, or maybe have a friend or family member. We know people love to have family and friends in the neighborhood. Okay, so just sign, basically. Then you're going to do a just listed, right? And this may coincide with your neighbors only event, right? And so what you're going to do is a special separate open house, have some drinks, some appetizers, something nice, and really wine and dine the people that live in the area. Because we're assuming this is a nice listing, it's got a good price point, it's got maybe good turnover. For one reason or another, you've decided you want to go all in and get more listings like this one. So let's take it all the way and do something nice for the neighbors. So you're going to door knock it when you sign it. Then you're going to door knock a neighbors only, just listed. Then you're going to come back around again when you've set it pending. Be like, gosh, remember we talked about that property? You wouldn't believe what we got it, how quickly we got it sold for. It's only been this amount of days, blah, blah, blah. And then when it's just sold as well, you can come back around and tell them the success story, and maybe a little bit about the details of the ups and downs of the negotiation, and then the price that you were able to get for that seller. If you go out and hit the same neighborhood 4 times around one listing, you're definitely going to catch attention from the sellers in the area. If anyone is considering doing anything, they're going to give you a good long second thought about using you for it. So hit the streets, go door knocking. The tried and true stuff as well, besides these things, is the print. You're going to send out postcards, and you can do the same activities that we're talking about with door knocking with postcards, and you can hit the neighborhood hard. That would fall into the category more of the check equity as opposed to the knocking and the sweat equity. If you're working with investors, and there's plenty of people that have either a few good relationships to the investors or flipper world, or maybe that's their real niche and that's who they talk to all the time. One agent spoke up and said, listen, if I know I've got an investor property and it's clear that this is going to go to some flipper that I'm in conversation with, I just make it real clear. If you want this one to be your next project to work on, I'm going to need you to give me another listing from something else you're working on. Just cut and dry, kind of savage, but boy, that gets straight to the point, doesn't it? So keep that in mind. And if you've got a bold personality, go for it. And even if you don't, maybe work your courage up and go for it. Boy, this is a tall order, but man, another agent talked about the idea of having the goal being to add 100 people to your database with every listing you take. I mean, that's a high bar right there. But this is the way they go about doing that. Obviously, a lot of the activities that we've talked about already can be applied to meet this goal. A lot of these 100 people that you're going to throw in your database are primarily going to be neighbors. They're going to see your sign. It's going to be visitors who are maybe not necessarily neighbors, but they're in the area shopping for properties, etc. So the idea is similar to what we were talking about earlier, not providing all the information in your online ad, and then pushing them to a ClickFunnels to provide an email address and then get all the information they want. Do the same thing with a sign writer. You can direct people to a landing page. You could be the 123mainstreet.com like you've seen, or you could just use a QR code. You can do the same thing with the flyer that's in the box. Make great photos, good amount of information, but the key parts, primarily the price and some other data that they're looking for, don't provide that. Say, hey, go to this link for more information. They go to it. They're met with a little form. You're not asking for a lot of information. All you're asking for is their email and maybe their name, and then they're going to get everything they're looking for. This is not a big branding play. You don't have your face and your name and your logo plastered everywhere. This is just information about this property. And that's why the 123 Main Street type URL and just a stripped down one page site is all you're looking for, right? Don't be trying to do 5 things at once here. We're doing one thing, which is provide information they've asked for and get their information. It's a simple exchange. And then you have to go through and actually take advantage of utilizing this database that you're growing and stay in contact with them. You've got to put out content on a regular basis. And the agent that mentioned this said they're putting out weekly videos. There's a weekly newsletter that goes out all the time. And there's various information that they're sending out. Of course, the typical market update or maybe new listings kind of update. There's once a month, they're going to put out a seller mistakes video talking about maybe one seller mistake that they've come across that people make on a regular basis and how to avoid doing that in the future. Some sort of local community events are huge. Keep people updated, because the people in that database, some of them may be ready to sell or buy next month, and some of them it's going to be 2 or 3 years. So there's going to be different levels of interest in what you're providing depending on what stage they're at, right? So like a local community events update every 3rd week or whatever it may be is something that someone who is maybe not going to do anything for a long time would still be interested in because they live in the area and they like doing stuff in the neighborhood. Finally, make it personal. If you're going to be sending out this information, don't just be constantly putting out real estate stuff. Tell some things about yourself, maybe some personal thing that you went through that you could use as a tip or whatever the case may be. So those are what they're doing with their email newsletter campaigns after they get these 100 contacts through a new listing, which is pretty cool. Another idea to help put people in the pipeline for future sellers, an agent mentioned, is to just be on the hunt, really engaging on social media, even looking at Nextdoor. This time of year, it's tax time. Who's bitching and moaning about paying their property taxes, right? Well, maybe raise your hand and say, hey, I can help you at least file a protest to see if that tax base is wrong. Maybe we can get it adjusted for you. Just offer something like that of value. And then once you're in contact with them, throw them in the system, follow up with all your stuff you're already doing. So we're going to wrap that topic for there, and we're going to move into social media. How are you going to jumpstart your social presence for a new agent or for someone who really doesn't have much of a social presence at all? Well, the first recommendation didn't have anything to do with social media at all. It was basically, and this is more of a question for a new agent as opposed to someone who just hasn't spent any time online. But let's take your sphere. We're going to use these tools that you can find online. They're memory joggers that can help you think of everybody in every facet of your life that you know. You can go through your phone, obviously, as a first step. You put them all in your database. And then you start off with snail mail. People know you're new. And so explain that you found yourself in this amazing atmosphere. I've got, these high producing agents that I'm learning from every single Monday. And it's taking me a fraction of the time to ramp up and to get educated on this craft as it would an average agent because of the people I'm associated with. So something to that effect in a snail mail, and then move on to your social efforts, right? There's obviously the concept of making a video blog, or just making a lot of shorts, but the idea of sharing what the first, taking your tests, becoming an agent, what's the first month, what's the first 6 months, what's the first year look like, and just becoming a new agent, making this transition out of whatever it is you're doing before into real estate is an interesting story that people are going to want to follow. So that's a great idea right there. The goal is so that your sphere knows exactly what you're doing all the time. Educate them, take them along the ride. Property previews, showings, touring new homes, going on appointments, preparing in the office, doing the mundane. Show them everything you're doing and make it genuine, and people will like to see what you're doing. People love a good story and they'll follow along. But the biggest thing out of all of this, you've got to make it regular. You've got to make it consistent. You can't start strong and then fizzle out. It's going to take you nowhere. So that's the biggest thing. You've got to block it in your calendar. You've got to just stick to it. What's something interesting that somebody brought up is the concept that sometimes strangers will actually be more supportive of you and your new endeavors than your own friends and family. It's kind of a cold, hard reality, but it's true. So if you're in your head at all about doing this, just go all out. Forget about what people may or may not be thinking, because they can feel and think what they want, because you have a determination to move forward and to make this thing work. And you're going to run into a whole lot of new people that you don't already know and that you're not related to, and they're going to believe in you. So eventually, maybe the old folks will come around, or maybe they won't, but that's not your concern. Just get out there and do what you need to do. The other thing, as far as the headspace around social media, is to realize that by the way that it works, it's inherently allowing you to be in charge of the perception that people have of you. You get to select which posts, which stories, how you look. You're dictating all of this. So just, make clear that you're showing people that you're a busy working realtor in what you're doing. Don't lose your personality in it. You want to be unique and you want to be interesting, but the more posts with video showing exactly what you're doing will just help, like I said, create that perception of a busy realtor, not someone who's new or naive or doesn't know what they're doing. You're choosing what to show, and the more volume and the more consistency that you do that with, the better off that perception is going to come. So really take a step back and think about social media as an actual media tool, a medium you are using to communicate, and the luxury that it gives you with how to present yourself. Should go without saying, but understand it's a long game. Even the people that don't know you, maybe are acquaintances or strangers completely, when you're doing something new, you've shifted gears from maybe an old career path or maybe from school or something that you're doing into this, it's going to take a little bit of time for someone to be like, okay, I've seen this for so frequently and for so long. Now I think that they're more of an authority in the space. They really know what they're doing. But it's a long game. It's not going to happen overnight. And that's why I keep pounding the table about volume and consistency and regularity. So definitely use your time blocks and your calendar, just like we were talking about with the property notifications. You've got to zone in and really manage your time first and foremost before you do everything else in this business. So we are going to wrap it right there. I hope you have found this helpful. I hope you found something that you can actually implement in your business, not just learn about it and keep it in your headspace, but actually take it and do it and benefit from it. So yeah, best ways to send listings to clients, how to leverage your listings to get more, and how to jumpstart a social media's presence for a new agent. Feel free to send me a message here about any of those topics. I'd love to chat with you or answer any questions. I'll talk to you soon.